You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Monday, January 13th. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Weston not able to join the show today. We will catch up with him next week, but there is still plenty to talk about. So the show goes on here. And of course, with the 49ers having a couple of coaching searches underway, that is what we have updates on today. Thursday, we found out that the 49ers interviewed a couple of defensive coordinators. Now, a couple of these names will sound familiar to you. Robert Saleh being the familiar one, former Jets head coach, former 49ers defensive coordinator. That ring a bell? Yeah, exactly. That one. And, he had already been reported as someone that the 49ers would have interest in. So this one kind of just confirms that interest. And of course, the feeling is mutual, we'll have to imagine. The other defensive coordinator that the 49ers interviewed was Deshea Townsend. He is the Lions DB coach and passing game coordinator. And that was an intriguing one. You could say there's just the Rooney Rule, which I hate that everyone assumes that certain people are just the Rooney Rule. What if they're actually a good candidate and they're actually being considered as a candidate? Do you ever think of that? Deshea Townsend, especially having been with the Lions, this past season, I think is intriguing. The Lions definitely have a great defense, even with a lot of the injuries that they've had this season. They've been pretty impressive, right? So Townsend has been the passing game coordinator and DB coach for them as of this season. Before that, he was Jacksonville Jaguars passing game coordinator and cornerbacks coach in 2022, 2023. He was the secondary coach of the Bears before that. And, I was doing some digging on Townsend, and I like his energy. Definitely a higher energy guy along the lines of, someone like D'Amico, or at least from what I was able to gather, right? Like he seems like he has some good energy to him that players, I think, would gravitate to. Something, we as fans have definitely gravitated to, through our screens as well. And he's a former player, which I think bodes well for players, and the ability to communicate with them and relate to them on a different level. He played with the Steelers and the Colts in his NFL career. And he's had a lot of experience as a coach as well. Again, mostly with DBs or corners. And so, pretty much 10 plus years as DB or secondary coach. So, I think these are two solid options for the 49ers so far. I got to imagine there's going to be more names that pop up. In fact, today we just, I don't know about found out, but we just saw from a piece that Nick Wagner put out. Nick Wagner's ESPN 49ers beat writer. He wrote in an article he put out today, the 49ers might have some interest in Dennis Allen. He said, quote, "While Saleh and Ulbrich are considered top candidates, another name worth keeping a close eye on is former New Orleans Saints coach Dennis Allen. Allen has extensive experience working 8 years as a defensive coordinator in Denver and New Orleans, almost 6 seasons as a head coach with the Saints and Raiders, and another year as a Saints senior defensive assistant." So there you have it. Dennis Allen may be another name to keep an eye on. And, maybe he's just putting pieces together. Maybe he's hearing something. I don't know, right? But I also wanted to just kind of pass this along as well, because I mentioned 49ers Sports Talk on Twitter last week in one of my shows, in one of his reports, right? it was that the 49ers were going to be firing Brian Schneider. That ended up happening, and that they were looking at potentially moving on from Nick Sorensen as well. That ended up happening. So you don't have to believe what 49ers Sports Talk says, like you can take it for what it is, which may be nothing to you. But he has been right on some things. So I'll just share it. I'm passing it along to you guys. This is what he had to say shortly after the Nick Wagner piece. He did post this, that the 49ers plan to interview former Saints head coach Dennis Allen for the defensive coordinator position. So again, take that for what it is. If in the next couple of days we do get word that Dennis Allen did have an interview for the DC position, that gets pretty interesting, because I do think he is a strong candidate for the position. And yeah, I mean, this would kind of be in line with what I have been saying the 49ers need, which is an experienced defensive coordinator and someone who has done the head coach gig before, and it has not worked out, so much so that nobody wants that guy as a head coach ever again. Or maybe they'll get interviews, but they won't actually get hired, right? That's the kind of long-term defensive coordinator answer that the 49ers need, I think. So I think Dennis Allen checks that box. And, by the way, looking at the Nick Wagner piece on ESPN as well, something that he mentioned was that Kyle Shanahan right now, and in this current search, he prefers a defensive coordinator with existing defensive coordinator experience and familiarity running a 4-3 scheme. All right. So in line with that, some of the names that he mentioned in this piece, or these are all the defensive coordinator candidates that Nick Wagner mentioned in his ESPN piece. Robert Saleh, of course, who has already interviewed, former Jets head coach, Jeff Ulbrich, Jets current interim head coach, Dennis Allen, former Saints defensive coordinator, Gus Bradley, former Colts defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, former Bengals defensive coordinator, and Patrick Graham, current Raiders defensive coordinator. We don't know if Graham is going to end up being let go by the Raiders as well, but so that obviously pending that. He also did mention the Deshea Townsend, actually, who again has already interviewed for defensive coordinator. So these are all the names that have been mentioned as defensive coordinator options for the 49ers. So I don't think it'd be a surprise if we ended up seeing some of the names on this list that Nick Wagner posted as eventually being guys who interview. And, you think about it, a lot of these names a couple of these names go in line with what Wagner said Kyle is looking for, someone with existing defensive coordinator experience and runs a 4-3 scheme, or has run a 4-3 scheme. So I think this would be good. And again, particularly if maybe it's not a deal breaker, but someone a third option that I would want someone to check the box of is, someone who has been a head coach before, didn't go so well. So there's a couple of guys here who, like Saleh, Ulbrich potentially, who could fall under that list. Although Saleh's still getting some interest for head coach. All right. So as of right now, he is set to interview with the Jags on Tuesday. So tomorrow, today is Monday, and the Raiders job on Thursday. So later this week, right? So those, as of right now, those are the two teams that have come up for Robert Saleh, interest in having Robert Saleh as a head coach. That doesn't mean he's going to end up, getting the job by one of these teams, but he is interviewing, so there is some interest there. And of course, if he had the choice, he's going to go for the head coaching position over defensive coordinator, I'd have to imagine. Although Jags and Raiders, not exactly the most stable franchises, so who knows? Maybe he's just keeping his options open, seeing what he can get out there. But yeah, I'd have to imagine, the 49ers, if they do want Saleh's services, they'd have to make a compelling argument for him to consider the 49ers DC position over a head coaching position. But yeah, this may take some time. I mean, Saleh's going to be on the hook with the Jags and Raiders waiting to see what comes from those interviews. So, and the 49ers, even if he is the top choice, the 49ers may not find out if he would even accept the job for another week after those interviews potentially. So 49ers keeping their options open. They're going to continue interviewing defensive coordinator candidates. So he's not the last of it for sure. And Jeff Ulbrich, who, maybe is one of the top guys. I mean, he certainly has been touted as one of the top guys by all the 49ers, all or almost all of the 49ers beat writers. So Ulbrich has interviewed for the Jets head coach position, like permanent head coach position, right? He's been the interim after Robert Saleh got let go. But now the Jets are interviewing him for the real thing, like for real this time. So we'll see if anything comes of that. But of course, that's just another top candidate we could expect that the 49ers will kind of be having to wait on and see what happens with those guys, Ulbrich and Saleh. So 49ers maybe casting a wide net of candidates besides those top two guys, and Dennis Allen, like Nick Wagner maybe hints at, could be the guy next up for a defensive coordinator interview. Let me get to some of these comments while take a little break here. Yeah, make sure you like this video. Follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Appreciate all of you. I know it's the off season is so weird. Like, a lot of people check out for the off season. People unsubscribe. They don't want to see anything 49ers for a few months. Hey, I don't blame you. I mean, you got to cleanse. You got to touch some grass. I'm with you. And so I appreciate all of you who are still here. And for those who are taking a break, I'm still going to be here when you get back. So kind of asked the question, who's going to be Jerry's coach? Of course, he's talking about Jerry Jones, who, decided a week after the season ended that he would not be bringing Mike McCarthy back for head coach. So he screwed himself and he screwed Mike McCarthy, because Mike McCarthy missed the first wave of head coaching interviews that some of these teams had. So he's going to be behind the eight ball. And also, like, in the process, he shot himself in the foot because the Cowboys missed out on being able to interview the top candidates who are still in the playoffs too, like Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen, the Lions defensive coordinator as well. So Jerry Jones, like, I'm at this point, I'm like, does he even like the Cowboys? Because every move seems to be a self-sabotaging move. So I don't know. Nothing he does really makes a whole lot of sense to me, but Cowboys get a Cowboys, I guess. All right. Moving right along here. So as far as the 49ers options for special teams coordinator, let me actually go to the next slide, because so the 49ers have now conducted 2 special team coordinator interviews as well. So as of right now, 2 defensive coordinator interviews, 2 special team coordinator interviews. So for special teams, you got Jet Modkins, who is the Lions special teams assistant coach. And we just found out shortly before we went live here, the 49ers have their second coordinator interviews for special teams, Chris Banjo, the Broncos special teams assistant coach. Now, both of these special teams units are pretty well regarded. Like, the Lions, at least in DVOA, are number 1 ranking there. And the Broncos, I believe, are number 4. So, it's not surprising that the 49ers are going after some guys who are in successful positions. Maybe they want to just, pick their brain a little bit, kind of see what their thoughts would be as to how to turn things around for the 49ers and all that. But definitely interesting. I do like when the 49ers go after coaches on good teams, because usually there's something there, just like how teams go after the 49ers and their coaches when they're good. It makes sense. So yeah, Modkins, I think that's an interesting one for the 49ers. And in Banjo, it's so what I'm kind of gathering, right? Talking about Kyle's preferences for his defensive coordinator. He wants someone who has DC experience already, right? It doesn't seem like that's the case so much so for special teams coordinator, because both of these candidates, at least the two that they've interviewed so far, are special team assistant coaches, right? So the promotion for them would be to be a coordinator. But as of right now, they're under the special teams coordinator of their respective teams. So maybe with special teams, there's some leniency there. But the 49ers also, as they mentioned in their postseason presser last week, they're also interested in, potentially having Nick Sorensen fill in as a special teams coordinator, right? Like they could hire him as the coordinator there. So we don't know if Nick Sorensen would even agree to that, or, what those discussions have been like. We haven't heard that Nick Sorensen has interviewed for that position as of yet. So who knows? Like maybe that won't come to fruition. But yeah, it seems like there's more of a willingness to get someone who has maybe a little less experience. For example, Chris Banjo only had this assistant special teams coach position just this past season, or sorry, 2 seasons. So he's been the assistant special teams coach since 2023. But that's his only coaching position that he's had. He's a former player. He was a DB, I think. He's a safety and special teams player. Yeah, safety, played with a number of different teams. The Arizona Cardinals and Packers, Saints, Jags. So, yeah, really his only experience as a coach has been with the Broncos. And so he doesn't have that much experience. And as far as who's the other guy? So let's see here. Yeah, Jet Modkins. He has a little bit more experience, and he is actually the son of former 49ers offensive coordinator Curtis Modkins, who was the offensive coordinator under Chip Kelly. So there's some parallels there, I guess. But yeah, it seems like 49ers are getting their interviews out of the way. I don't expect this to be the end of them. I do expect that we'll continue to see some more reports in the coming days, but this is definitely good to see the ball rolling. And who knows, maybe with some of the teams, continuing to get eliminated, like this past week, there were 4 teams got eliminated from the wild card round of the playoffs, right? So maybe the 49ers would have interest in any of those teams as well. Speaking of a team that also was not in the playoffs, going back to Jerry Jones, the Cowboys and all that, someone mentioned that, maybe the 49ers could go after the Cowboys special teams coordinator, because the John Fassel, because they've had a pretty decent special teams unit for some time. So maybe that's an option. There's now some, how do I put this? Like instability, you could say, with the Cowboys, with Mike McCarthy, as we know, not returning. And while Fassel has been the special teams coordinator since 2020 for the Cowboys, maybe the fact that McCarthy's gone and, there's some changes happening, maybe he'd be open to listening to that same position for another team, maybe the 49ers. So who knows? I mean, I definitely think it wouldn't hurt to bring him in as an interview or anything like that. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm a little less interested in special teams and special teams coordinator. It would be hard to be worse than Brian Schneider was this past season. So just pick anyone that has some experience with it and go. I'm much more interested in defensive coordinator and what the 49ers do there. I think it's a little more exciting this time that they're not in the playoffs. They have the opportunity to get someone, get all these interviews early and, have the large pool of candidates available to them. And I think that's going to do them well. I think they'll actually be able to get someone who, they're wanting, someone towards the top of their list. Again, Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich, entertaining head coaching positions. So maybe one or both of those guys ends up, being a head coach again this season, and they say no to a 49ers defensive coordinator position, in which case the 49ers would still probably be settling for a plan C. But the fact that they're getting all of these done now in early January, I still think their plan C this season would be better than their plan C was last season, which was Nick Sorensen. So I'm still optimistic about this. And there's no guarantee that Saleh or Ulbrich are offered or even take a head coach position. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Let me get to a couple of these comments here. Hey, Callie, appreciate you. Daniel says, I hate to say it, but I kind of like Dennis Allen more than Robert Saleh to be our defensive coordinator. I mean, people who are smarter than me, like Rich, for example, who's been on the show, Rich Madrid, he said he thinks Dennis Allen is the better option of Saleh, Ulbrich, and Allen. So, hey, like I will accept that opinion for sure. Hind asks, any good college options? Not sure if you're talking about defensive coordinator or special teams, but I have seen people, at least. Oh, wait, we got another one here. Okay, so sidebar really quickly. You know how last week I said that the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan said, he told the media, he told everyone that he would be promoting Clay Kubiak to offensive coordinator. And he basically said he's been doing everything that the role would entail already. Now he's just going to give him the title. Well, turns out that's not allowed by the NFL because you have to interview at least one minority coach, right, to satisfy the Rooney Rule. So the 49ers have to, in order to promote Clay Kubiak, they have to first interview a candidate that, they know they're not going to hire. Like, it's a pity or, checking a box kind of interview. And so I guess that interview is, as Matt Barrows just tweeted out, Noah Pauley. And he was the wide receivers coach at Iowa State. In 2024, he added pass game coordinator to his duties. So he was interviewed for the 49ers offensive coordinator vacancy. But don't be alarmed. It's still going to be Clay Kubiak because that's what Kyle Shanahan told us. But again, this one is just a formality, unfortunately, just to, check that box. So, in fact, let's see here. Yeah, Noah Pauley from Iowa State. Why not, right? If you're gonna have to do that interview, you might as well make it somewhat interesting. Obviously, Iowa State experience with Brock Purdy. So I'm trying to see how long he's been at Iowa State. In 23-24 season, he started there. So maybe he didn't cross paths with Brock Purdy. If he did, it was very small. But so yeah, that is the latest coaching interview news that we have, up to the minute updates here. But Hind, I want to get back to your question regarding college options, right? As far as special teams coordinator, people mention this Penn State one, right? Like James, oh no, not Penn State. It's Notre Dame. Notre Dame. People have mentioned him a lot, right? So Marty Biagi, or Biagi, however you pronounce it. And so he maybe could be an option for the 49ers, although I haven't heard anyone, like any beat writers, mention him as an option, but it's really the only one that's coming to mind to me. And, Notre Dame has a pretty good, and I'd say aggressive special teams unit. So that could be, I think that's the reason why a lot of fans, think that he should get an interview. Travis asks, Kyle didn't know the rules. I mean, even I didn't know that rule. Like, I don't know how long it was like this rule has been implemented. Like, I know the Rooney Rule has been around, but I didn't know that also was for coordinators, or like if you're planning to make an in-house promotion, that you still have to go through that. I understand if it's like a open search, then yeah, like you got to satisfy the Rooney Rule, but I don't think I even knew that. But hey, I mean, it seems like Kyle Shanahan didn't really either know or remember when he told the media that, he was going to promote Clay Kubiak. Or he knew, and he just knew that he was going to end up, interviewing someone like Noah Pauley before eventually promoting Clay Kubiak. Not sure. Really not sure. But it's an interesting role, I think. And Jedi says, I want Saleh back now, but he can't leave for 3 years. There has to be, like, that's my thing, right? Like, I want someone who's going to be around for more than a year. And that's tough because, like, we've seen when the 49ers have good coordinators, especially when they've had good defensive coordinators, like, they're going to receive head coaching interest, right? So who's to say that if Robert Saleh gets hired back as a defensive coordinator for the 49ers, he looks great again, and people are calling him up again for head coaching positions. People are already calling him up still for head coaching positions, even after his stint with the Jets, right? So clearly he's going to be someone who's going to continue to receive interest. I'm not sure his time as a head coach was so bad to assume that he wouldn't continue to get head coaching interest and thus like be a threat to leave. So that's my thing with Saleh. I don't know if you put something in his contract that's like you have to stay for 3 years. Like who's taking that job, right? Like I don't think I would do that if I was Saleh, and I don't think the 49ers would do that either. I think they just would want a good defensive coordinator for however long that would be. And so I guess we'll see. Yeah, and there's a game tonight. There is the final wild card round game between the LA Rams and the Minnesota Vikings. So that should be a pretty entertaining one today, happening starting shortly, actually. The last bit of news that I wanted to talk to you guys about before we skedaddle on out of here is the 49ers All-Pros. So in case you guys didn't know, AP All-Pros, all right? Because there's like the NFLPA puts out their All-Pro list, which, whatever. Those are just players who the players vote for. AP is like the All-Pro. These are the All-Pro lists that players have in their contracts. Like if I make the All-Pro, I get this, and that, or whatever. So this season, obviously the 49ers, not at the caliber that they were previous year in 2023. So this year they only got 3 All-Pros, right? And only 1 first team, Fred Warner. Now, the interesting one that's obviously part of an argument here is like George Kittle. How does he make second team? Like, how is George Kittle not a first team All-Pro? Raiders rookie Brock Bowers made first team. Brock Bowers had an incredible season. Like I have to give him that. He broke records. I think that's like what put him over the edge is that he broke some records for rookie tight ends, right? Or for rookies in general. I think he had the most receptions of any rookie. So I think that's what helps make the case for him. I think all us 49er fans would have loved to see and could make an argument for George Kittle to be first team All-Pro. I was going to say I think it helps if your team is good, but the Raiders weren't good either, so I guess that doesn't really make any difference in this case. But yeah, I think I'd listen to any argument that would say Kittle should have been first team All-Pro. But also I'm okay. Like Brock Bowers, like I said, I think had a good season. It's not like this isn't some like absurdly gross misjustice. Like if it was, I'm trying to think, like if Travis Kelce this season got first team All-Pro over Kittle, like that would be insane. But Brock Bowers, I think, had a good enough season where, yeah, like he deserved to be in that discussion, and clearly AP voted for him to get the All-Pro first team over Kittle. So Kittle will have to try again next season, but I mean, it's good for Bowers, I guess. Kyle Juszczyk also made it second team, and you might be saying, how the hell does Kyle Juszczyk make second team when he's the only fullback in the entire league whose name I know? There's Pat Ricard from the Ravens, good team. He's a contributor, which shouldn't be surprising. The Ravens is probably one of the only other teams in the NFL that use a fullback as frequently as 49ers do. In fact, if you guys recall, Kyle Juszczyk came from the Ravens. So the guy who took his spot after him, Pat Ricard, first team All-Pro. So I think it's the good team privilege for Ricard to get the nod over Juice. And, maybe with the way that run game looked for the Ravens this season, yeah, I think that one's totally fair. So want to know if you guys are angry about this one. It doesn't seem like, you guys in the comments are really up in arms about this. Like Hein, unicorn rookie tight end. Thank you. Like Brock Bowers was awesome. He was awesome this season. So yes, I would have liked Kittle to be first team All-Pro, but like I'm not up in arms and mad that Brock Bowers got it. Like he was really good this season. So not too mad. We'll see. All right. Well, short show for today since, it's the off season now. We've got, we'll have a lot to cover throughout this season, but there's no need to have all those topics in one episode. So today just covered the coaching news and rumors, the latest that we've heard on that for defensive coordinator and special teams. And we'll continue to monitor that throughout this offseason until the 49ers, hire somebody. So we're going to keep tabs on it. Planning off-season shows this for the coming weeks. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. And by the way, my draft sheet, 2025 draft sheet is out. So if you guys enjoy draft content and want to know who the 49ers have been meeting with, have had reported interest in so far, which college games their scouts attended this past season, you definitely want to check out my 2025 draft sheet. And I'll be talking about that all off season, at least up until the draft. So make sure that you tune in to that. Yeah, JME, you're kind of missing, like I'm about to bounce, and 49er media as well. You guys are coming in a little late, but you can always rewind, so be sure to do that. But make sure you like this video before you head out. Have a good rest of your Monday. Enjoy that last wild card game. But for now, have a good rest of your Monday, folks. Peace.